broadening it out gets like 125. And if we want to really go US wide and much broader, there's like 900. But there shouldn't really ever be much more than, in my opinion, for every role, if it's really well defined, unless it's a generic account executive or software engineer. And it's like, yeah, anywhere in the US, we don't care about their background. We just want really smart people or really good quota carrying salespeople. Then you probably have thousands. But if it's like this, where the spec is saying we want startup or healthcare, no, startup, definitely preference, and healthcare, very hands-on, junior to mid-hire. Like, you shouldn't really have more than a few hundred people who have all the traits and the characteristics to do the job properly and experience. So yeah, it doesn't have to be thousands of people to go through. The problem is people just go too loose too early with their search criteria. So they spend hours and hours doing it. Or you should do it the other way around and go real narrow first and then broaden it out over time. Hey, this is Gareth Webb, and you're listening to Breakout, a show that cuts through the hiring noise. Here, you'll get an unfiltered view on what early and growth stage companies are doing so that you can take their best practices, processes, and frameworks and implement them to help you build teams more confidently.
All right. Good afternoon, Gareth.
Good afternoon, Jake. It's been a while.
Yeah, I was going to say, welcome back. Got the gang back. I've graduated from producer back to co-host. So thanks for having me on as a co-host this time.
Very welcome.
So today we're going to switch it up a little bit. What we have set up, you get a pick from 3 companies and or positions that are currently live. I have picked the companies that I think might be just interesting to dive into, give you a little bit of information. We will pick the company and role, and then have you kind of break down what's going on, what information would be, helpful to have that's maybe missing, what's currently good with the, job spec, company, what else you'd like to see, and then kind of do a little bit of a faux search to kind of help break down and help out maybe how to generate some of that outbound if, a team has the time and capacity to do so.
Yeah. So you're sort of testing me here.
Yeah. So, yeah. You are in the hot seat.
Time for some revision and practice. Yeah, that's fair.
So yeah, we'll see how it goes. And, I think that I have the 3 companies here, but as we go, we can kind of determine what makes the most sense in the future. If our listeners are interested in as well, we can have them volunteer themselves or other companies too that have positions open. Things that might be niche, things that come up a lot in terms of roles, or they're hard to source for, bandwidth is low, whatever it might be, we can kind of figure it out and go from there. How does it sound?
Sounds good. Yep.
Great.
I'm ready to go.
Okay. So I'm going to give you a little company bio. I'm in position bio. It's very high level. For those listening, there is a video version of this too. It will be hosted on YouTube and then probably social media as well. So company 1 here, we've got a cybersecurity company, recently raised a Series A, doing about $11 million in revenue. They're in the 11 to 50 employee bracket. And I've got a quick blurb here, kind of focus on file sanitization, protecting from zero-day attacks. We can dive into that if that's a company of interest for you. The position, lead full stack engineer. It is fully remote. And from what we can see, it's been posted for at least 4 months, and they have quite a high volume of applications. And from what we can gather, their people team seems pretty limited. It looks like it's just their HR manager, and they have a total of 5 openings across the company. Company 2 is a health tech company. They raised their seed funding last year, doing about $4 million in revenue, also in that 11 to 50 employee bracket. And as I mentioned, health tech space in the chronic care, building a chronic care management platform. Position that they are looking at right now is a marketing manager. This is also remote. Don't have any information on the age of the posting. It looks like their people team is pretty limited here too as well. Just a recruiter from what we can see. And they have a total of 7 openings across the company. Company 3, AgTech company. Their seed funding was raised a little while ago, back in 2019, doing about $3 million in revenue. Slightly smaller on the employee side. They're developing an irrigation management system for agriculture. Position here is a senior software engineer. It is in office. A little less information on the people team and age of the position. 3 total openings here, so not quite as much hiring activity going on in relation to the other 2 companies. So this is over to you now.
I think let's go company 2. Like, healthcare seems to be top of mind at the moment, and it wouldn't be easy given it's a seed stage, but yeah, the company 2, Healthtech, seed stage, marketing manager.
Cool.
So Medsien, the jobs here, marketing manager. Okay, so a quick look at this job first. Hospitals and healthcare So it's a leading provider of remote virtual care services to medical practices across the US. I thought this is crazy saturated industry, amount of people doing this, but clearly not. Changing nature of healthcare delivery with value-based care. Okay, so just talking about this, they don't say much here, which I always find interesting in the beginning, like funding, revenue. Companies tend to not do that. It's, I think it's better to get some numbers in and some data in there earlier. So it's a little bit about them, rapid growth, high demand, healthcare product.
You're looking for some more tangibles.
Yeah, I would be looking for, potentially looking for like, okay, what stage are they at? Like saying that so people know early on, like, is it seed or series A? What is the revenue? Like, I think it's good to put that in there if you have decent revenue, obviously. Just, it looks like a fairly like broad role, which they've kind of got into pretty quickly there, working with leadership to basically build out multi-channel and demand campaigns. As you know, asking for a lot of things, strategic and analytical capacity, project management, communication, leadership skills, and then responsibilities, qualifications, benefits. It's pretty sterile, isn't it? Like, I think this is the problem with 99% of job descriptions is like they're sterile and they're all the same. Like, this has probably been created by ChatGPT. And of course, it goes without saying, really, like a B2B healthcare technology they're selling to practices, hospitals, or whatever. They're going to be looking for a broad set of skills. Somebody's going to do a bit of everything. But it's develop and execute, improve marketing projects across digital, paid, email content, website. So it's everything. Identifiable. It's everything. Multi-channel, everything. Share briefs, kick off new projects, collaborate with internal and external creative teams. There's nothing wrong with it. It's literally just that it's every single marketing manager spec, really, right? So it's like nothing unique here. I don't get anything that unique about the overall. Again, you can read this as a candidate and be like, okay, remote virtual healthcare, US-wide SaaS, rapid growth, and then just a generic spec. This is literally describing what a marketing manager does. This isn't like anything unique. And okay, it does say you'll be, working with sales, ops, leadership, 5 years plus. I would wonder why 5 years for someone to come in and do all this. I don't think there's any comp details, so we don't know really how senior this is. 5 years of experience in content strategy or growth roles. You're missing out on a lot of people who could have done very good 3 years in kind of broader campaigns management and marketing. So I don't really understand the 5 years thing.
Sometimes to me, it feels like the year piece can almost be like kind of arbitrary. Like, like you said, what's the reasoning for 5? Like, especially if it's a little more generalist in all these areas.
Yeah, I think people don't want someone straight out of school, and then they want to know they've been robust enough that they can actually do the work in the environment that's not too easy, and they've maybe been promoted. But I would have thought 3 to 5 years would be fine for this type of role, or 3 to 7. A very bright marketing grad who's then been promoted to a marketing manager within 3 years could do this job. So I just think, again, it's like
they may have the desire to jump to what I would assume would be a smaller company from wherever they're at.
Yeah, and the first question I would say to a client on a call is why 5 years? Like, would you look at people at 3 or 4 years? Like, if they've done the work and they've worked in performance cultures.
So let's assume we can broaden that as you're thinking about, the next steps here. Like maybe it is more of like a 3 to 7.
It would be for me, if I was briefing with the client or one of the team here were bachelor's degree in marketing communications. Again, why? Like, not many people do bachelor's degrees in marketing. People do it could be in economics. It could be they could have done really technical degree. They could have done a language, marketing or communications degree. Fine. But there's lots of people that study not knowing what they want to do. And then they go into a job and do very well. So
you're thinking that's going to limit the potential candidate pool based on what you'd ideally want to be building out, right?
The perfect person could be reading this thinking, oh, I did maths, or I did business and economics. It's like, well, they could be amazing because they'd be smart. But we have a client now who's hiring for an accounting professional or manager, and they want accounting degree. I would argue somebody with a finance or economics or math degree would be smart enough as well. They actually did give up on that in the end. They said, okay, if they've got a CPA as well as their degree, then we can move from the accounting part, because it just limits the audience. Self-starter, horrible language, just, It's in every single job description, pretty much. Strong sense of ownership, ability to work autonomously. So what this doesn't really do is say, like, what's the problems that they're encountering at the moment and what are the outcomes they want? Obviously the outcome is grow business, increase revenue. We all know that. But like, what are the kind of milestones? What are the pain points internally with their current campaigns? What are their, what do they want to do to excite their customer? What kind of things they probably want someone to come in and help tell them that, but this isn't really that. This is just somebody to get marketing things done in terms of like email, social, performance campaigns. So, new content programs, experience in the industry and or startup. So healthcare and startup. I mean, that's fair. Like, I think wanting somebody to come from your same industry means you could ramp faster or you could understand the customer potentially better. Not necessarily though, but they said here all startups. So they're looking for startup and healthcare and or healthcare background. This stuff just doesn't need to be in there. Like, who doesn't have good written and verbal communication skills? People are still going to apply. People want the job. They're still going to apply. It's for you to sort of assess the written and verbal, saying it in the spec and the it's not really a qualification. It's, someone has this. It's more a skill or an attribute. Desire to work in an early stage startup and comfortable with associated uncertainty, rolling up sleeves, getting things done. Okay, fine. Growth mindset, fine. Yeah, but it doesn't really, say, here's what our problems are. Here's what we want you to come in and fix. Here's what we want the outcomes to be. What's in place already. It's not terrible. It's just the same old. It's like job spec for the sake of a job spec. Like I said, some of the stuff in here, I think we could. Some of the stuff better, like identify opportunities, collaborate to develop and launch multi-channel campaigns. Like, that's a bit more exciting. There's just nothing much exciting in here. It's like, hey, come in and help us grow our ARR from 3 to 4, or, take on new regions or expansion revenue. And, here's what we're like. Let's have a look at their website just as a.
I think I was looking at the previous thing too. It looked like, I mean, at least for what we can tell on LinkedIn, it was like up for 4 weeks and had one applicant. So this one, I think the traction's pretty.
One
pretty
applicant
low, at least.
All right, so we should definitely contact them. That can't be real. Can't have one applicant. Yeah, that's insane. Let's just have a look at one of the other ones here. This is better already. Like, it's just numbers in there, and it says what you're responsible for, and
managing the team of 5 to 20.
Yeah, right. And it's like
not really painting the picture in the marketing manager role of what you're going to be getting into. Like, I think it said working with agencies potentially, but to your point, like, are you the first like marketing leader to come in and build out X, right?
Yeah, they don't have any competitive salary. I mean, it's 2023. Like, you could, give up a little bit more information there, like a lot of our customers are doing. And, I think remote work opportunities. Does it say where it is? You said remote, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, then they're based out of California.
So look, it's not terrible, but like, it's just a bit generic, which is fine. So yeah,
go ahead.
Sort of figure out how to sort of look at folks.
Yeah, what I was going to say, I mean, might need to draw a few assumptions based on some of this, but I think you have some good like qualifications to kind of at least get a starting point. Anything that like kind of stands out that would start to, I don't know, craft your search in a way.
Yeah, so let's just start real quick.
Kind of thinking about,
let's just go straight in marketing manager as a current title.
And you're a LinkedIn recruiter.
LinkedIn recruiter, just because most people seem to use this. We obviously use this. We use Zoom Info as well, Sales or Talent OS, and various other sources. So let's go location, US. It's California is their office, isn't it? But let's just go US, United States wide. Workplace types. Some of this is quite new, actually. Okay. Years of experience. They said 5+, didn't they?
But we were saying what? Maybe 3 to 7 could be a good.
I think like
more broad.
Let's see how many it leaves out. Like 5. Let's say 5 to 10. I don't want to cut people off, but let's say 5 to 10, because they probably go to afford people being a small startup who are like way past that. But let's start here. 5 to 10 industries. Obviously, they want healthcare or startup. So hospitals, health and human services, public health. Let's keep it narrow to start with. So hospitals and healthcare, medical practices, and then software and internet marketplace platforms. That's probably where like most of the startups are in software and internet marketplace. And then we've got some medical and healthcare as well. Again, I'm just doing this as reasonably kind of quick and dirty. Campaigns, I'm going to look at demand gen or campaigns. I don't really bother with seniority and stuff too much, not with an initial quick search. Company size is important. 1 to 10 is probably a little bit small. Let's go 11 to 50, 50 to 200, just to cover that sort of Series A, B, seed Series A, B level. And years in current company. It used to be that we really just looked at people who had been in their current role for 2 years plus or 3 years plus, just because it would give a little bit more indication that they might want to leave. But I think in this current climate, I'll not bother with that. We could add in some companies, some healthcare tech companies.
I was going to ask about that because I know in the past, at least from when I've spoken with you about a few other roles, like I know sometimes you like to start like super narrow, or I was going to ask, is there a situation where you'd want to, work on look at a few specific companies and then go out, or what you were doing earlier, kind of look at the industries and then.
So we do
needed.
a few different things, right? We do like we're super zeroing in on the skill set and the title and the stage, and then we'll do like companies. So if we have a company and we know they want people from similar types of industries or companies, then we'll pump that list in. We'll do searches around companies, healthcare tech companies. I mean, there's a lot. Let's look at Oscar, ZocDoc. Let's look at Olive, isn't it? AI, healthcare. So let's just put those 3 in to start with and search, see what we get back. Okay, right. So 87.
So you're pretty
active.
Yeah, you're pretty narrow to begin with, right? Without
too narrow.
Yeah.
Because the companies I put in actually are just bigger than these. That's why. So I
got it.
Those 3 companies are bigger. That's why it gave me a 0, big fat 0.
So you might be like on the side, kind of working with them to identify a list of ideal companies on their end that they'd ideally want to pull from, or other companies in the startup space that might kind of fit that 11 to 200 employee range that could help you further narrow down.
Total numbers is pulling back here. 87 open to work, 271 results. So 271 people immediately from a pretty tight search on size of company, industry, keywords, have 5 to 10 years of experience. So of course, like we could broaden that out. So let's go down to 3, like I mentioned, 3 years, and let's just go all the way up, update. So we're going from 270 to 915. So within 915,
it out quite a bit.
Yeah. So, and just by taking that back down to 10, actually, 3, 6, 7 looks like. So 367 people. So there's another 100 people by going down to 3 years of experience instead of 5. I would definitely do that. Start showing clients calibration profiles. And, some of these, obviously you can't see their profiles because we blurred them out, but like some of these look good.
When you're saying some of these look good, what are you like? What information is coming up that's kind of flagging to you?
Yeah, just 5+ years of experience, multiple promotions, been at legitimate, well-funded startups. Like some they clearly have demand gen in sort of like their current role. It's sort of stating that they do demand generation. It's stating that they manage campaigns. What I will do, just to sort of go back a step, is look at years in current company, right? Because one of the things our clients want is like longevity. And let's say 2 years in current company. It also means for us, they're more likely going to be receptive to outreach and calls and emails, texts and notifications about a position. So
what, just because of a potential desire to...
Yeah, if someone's been in their current company 3 years, like if they're doing well, they might want to stay. They might, they might feel like they've done what they can do if they've not been promoted. So straight away here, we get a few folks who have been like 2-3 years in their current company, and some are not. Some slip through the cracks, actually, which, LinkedIn does that sometimes. Again, this is why you can't rely on LinkedIn all the time, because it doesn't always organize its own data as well as you'd think. So filtering too many people out the wrong way. Yeah. So, I mean, I do like company searches personally. So, you can do that obviously via Crunchbase or various other tools. There's this approach, with the recruiter search. I think at the very beginning of any search, we want to just be going as sort of close as possible to what the client really, really wants and what they believe they want. So I would say here, let's say, right, they want 5+ years. As we've said, we think maybe we should look at 3 or 4 as well. 2 years in the current company, let's get rid of that or make it 1 year. Most people want to give it a year. Sub 200 companies because it says they really want startup. Demand general campaigns, healthcare and startups, US, moat, marketing manager. Let's see what happens if we find someone in California just because that's where they are. So more likely to maybe want to be in the same time zone.
Mm-hmm.
So here we go. There's 46 people. So right away we can hit 46 people who from that interpreting the signals from that spec.
Mm-hmm.
So we will be able to reach those people in a day or even an hour or two, right? And just, and then expand to US wide, expand larger companies, expand, different skill sets. Let's clear the keywords and see if that helps because we've still got job title and industry. So that gives us 125 people, startup marketing managers in California, in internet software, medical practices, hospitals, healthcare, California only, 125. So, these 125, if LinkedIn is doing its job, it should be serving them that ad of that job, but probably not the case, given that one person's applied.
Looking at it.
Yeah, and so we can see here 125, and they all look right. Like they all look pretty solid, actually, coming out of healthcare or startups.
This would be a good way to, calibrate profiles too if you're not completely sure.
So this is what we do immediately,
right?
Yeah, immediately with the client on the call or after the client on the call, we would send through 5 to 10 calibration profiles of who we think look like an 8 or 9 or 10 out of 10 based on spec. And obviously they get to sort of have their opinion, and we use judgment and data and various things. So yeah, that's what I think. Like with that particular role is, as we've said, super tight is like 40 odd people. Mm-hmm. Broadening out gets like 125, and if we want to really go US wide and much broader, there's like 900. But there shouldn't really ever be much more than, in my opinion, like for every role, if it's really well defined, unless it's a generic account executive or software engineer, and it's like, anywhere in the US, we don't care about their background. We just want really smart people or really good quota carrying salespeople. Then you probably have thousands. But if it's like this, where the spec is saying we want startup or healthcare, so startup, definitely preference, and healthcare, very hands-on, junior to mid-hire. Like you shouldn't really have more than a few hundred people who have all the traits and the characteristics to do the job properly and experience. So it doesn't have to be thousands of people to go through. The problem is people just go too loose too early with their search criteria. So they spend hours and hours doing it. You should do it the other way around and go real narrow first and then broaden it out over time.
Cool. Hopefully that's helpful too. Because my next kind of follow up to that was assuming that the internal team is a smaller, potentially under-resourced. Like, how do you think about this activity in addition to, or in conjunction with, or in replacement to, something like a job ad, for example? Like, how is that all?
Right.
How are you thinking about that?
So this is all comes down to pricing and costs. The reason people want to like wing it and stick an ad out is because you can get lucky and you can make a hire, but that's just the absolute dollar value of the job ad. So most of our clients they will not be able to afford LinkedIn recruiter seat because they just want one and it's expensive. So recruiter seats are sort of built for bigger teams and they're expensive on their own for like a year's seat or however long they have it priced. So then your default is, well, let's put a job out. But everybody we know, everybody we talk to who does that then has their time drained. So there's the salary that gets burned, which no one really sort of thinks about. But let's say you have a people ops, say you're a startup and you have a pretty junior person doing ops and people and stuff like that. And they're putting the ads out there like this company probably is, or they have a recruiter, but like that, say that person's on $60,000, like, and they spend a month per role, then it's $5K of salary and everything else. So whilst the ad might only cost a couple $100, the person's time is thousands of dollars. And then it's, well, you haven't actually scanned the market to identify who should be doing this job, which is obviously what we do, and then putting them people in play first. And yes, you can have ad running at the same time, but you might be waiting 3, 6, 9 months. Whereas if you have the well-defined position and you have the comp right, then you can get that done very, very quickly. So I think what we're trying to show here is like there's an opportunity cost and there is the absolute cost of like what you're invoiced for a job ad versus what does that cost your business versus, like paying for search firms or agencies or kind of platforms or a third party. I do agree that it's too expensive for every hire to like have the fee, but like what we're trying to do is like de-risk that whole conversation with subscriptions, which means, yes, it's not a job ad, but this kind of more laser focused capture of the right audience is happening very early. And then all things going well, which does happen with us a lot, is like it's done in 30 days or 60 days. And that person's the best of the best qualified versus, oh, well, this person came through and we think they might work out. I think that's kind of like it doesn't, like, it's very much like, well, we want to do the cheap ad. We don't want the expensive fee, but there is middle ground. And actually the cheap ad could probably be the same kind of cost over time, potentially.
Well, I think we saw with that first company that was on your list before you decided on company 2 there was the series A. The job had been up for 4 months and there were 200 plus applicants. I'm guessing there's probably some refreshes there too. So that might be even more. So that's the other end of the spectrum, right? Which I know that we've seen internally, but also seen with customers.
Yeah. And it could be,
trying to filter through all that and maintain a good candidate experience is the other side of that, where you might have too much traction, but the volume is high and the quality is maybe there, but maybe not.
Probably not. Yeah. When you're looking for really specialist skilled people, and there's all these variables, right? So I'll give you another example at the moment. We have an accounting manager position live, but they want somebody that has managed. They're not going to be managing a huge team. The comp's fair, but once you start managing, you want to manage a decent sized team and a bigger team. So there's that, the size of team is hindrance. Then they also want them to have had experience with their vendor technology. They don't want to have to upskill somebody on 3 or 4 different accounting technologies. So the variables become pretty large. And in some cases, these variables become, then you have the other side of the process, which is once somebody is qualified for interview, you then have stakeholder expectation where we have a client at the moment where 2 VPs both tend to agree on the same people. The CEO does not like the people they put through. So it's very difficult because you've got 2 people that are excited about the profile and they agree that they're on the right track with the skill set and experience. And the CEO is like, no, this person is too strategy focused. They should be more customer account management type focused, partnerships director search or partner operations director. And so then it's very difficult. You're diagnosing the mismatch in their expectation on skill set and function. Ties back a little bit to the conversation we had recently with Jen at CharterUp. It's like, what is this person here to achieve as a set of outcomes? Not what university do they go to and what tasks do they do or what company were they at before, but like, what is it you want them to actually get done? So there's the criteria for the upfront sourcing. And this is the bit that Gordon mentioned the other week that still remains very difficult, is the sourcing piece. A, because people don't know how to clarify preferences and stack rank objectives. B, they don't have the tools anyway to then execute that. And then beyond that, it's actually just that you have to be pretty sophisticated explaining this stuff to people and then having a debate sometimes with executives like, hey, well, why are you 2 agreeing on these profiles? Here's 3 that you've all agreed on and your CEO's rejected. Yeah, like why is he not coming at the beginning for the briefing potentially? Like stuff like that. So it's just, you have to be pretty good at like corralling what's going to make everybody feel good and say yes. Like that's the piece that's tough with this.
Yeah.
I did, it's not the same at all, but like I was watching YouTube, which I don't do that often, but this was they were comparing an old Porsche with a new Porsche, the same model, but like I think 10 years apart. I think it was the Panamera. And obviously the technology is insanely different 10 years on. They were like, for this car that's now worth $25,000 and this one's worth $200,000, like you get a lot of the stuff out of it. But what they were saying is Porsche now have some obscene mathematical, out the possible, you can basically like customize anything, like the interior and the exterior and the engine. There's like 15 million plus combinations of that one model of car. And they had some mathematician on there, like working it out based on what the different options were on their e-commerce site. But like, it's not dissimilar with people. Like when we're talking to companies and it's comp, location, skill set, communication style, executive alignment, stakeholder like agreement. Like it's not 15 million, but it's a very large number of possible outcomes and combinations of individual that we're trying to, it's not like here's five resumes, get on with it. So there's a lot of math behind getting everybody to say yes. I mean, yeah, it's what we're trying to crack, right? Is that nobody has to do it. And it's going to take a few more years and probably a few $1 million worth of investment, because if you can crack that, and, everybody knows here's what you're all saying you want, and here's the visual of this position and the preferences, and here's the outcomes, and then here's the 100 people in America that could do that job, or in Germany, given what you have all said, here's 100 people who exist. We have to get one of these 100 people. Can you afford those? And is your process set up to attract somebody? And then after that, you have to retain them. So it is difficult, but it's made more difficult by lack of understanding and, honestly, just like a bit of ignorance, arrogance, and inability to be flexible.
Got it. Well, just to, recap, I think one of the things that seems interesting too is going through this. I think you had a couple of different versions of the search built out, but went from 30 to 40 up to a couple hundred individuals. It seemed like they might be a really good fit based on some of the specs that we were able to kind of draw from the job spec, some, potential tips on refining the job spec and just getting rid of some of the fluff and keeping some of the must-haves and making sure those are clear and better selling, what the outcomes are needed from the company and what the person will need to be delivering. And then that, in addition to, you mentioned an afternoon, if not that, in terms of outreach to get in front of all of those people versus having, a job out that may or may not be getting in front of them. So it's from a time standpoint, right? It's not like out of the question.
No. And it all comes back to, okay, like, is this a critical position? How cost of MTC is like a different debate and different conversation, but like the cost of an empty sales seat is obviously, well, how sellable is your product and how good is the salesperson you can attract? It's potentially millions of dollars. And therefore every month is like costing you your business 100 or 200K potentially after ramp. And for product, it can mean, you're not shipping fast enough when you've got demand. So yeah, there's all these things, and a lot of companies don't mind paying for it at all. That's, all our customers, they, give us give us positions to work every week because they know how hard it is, but they still want more of what they want, that, and so sometimes if that doesn't, like when we talked to Steph at Replicated, right, she was like, okay, maybe there's 58 people that can have this kind of experience with Kubernetes in the kind of position we want. And so having data helps in all these instances, but there shouldn't be months and months of getting hires made if the definition is there and the scoping of the requirement and the position is done really well. The problem is it's not always done really well until it's like too late, and people want to see what they can have first, and that's really annoying. But I get why people want to do it, because they don't get to see what we see every day, right? But they were like, I want to see like 5 to 10 really good people, then I think we can narrow down on the top 3. And it's never that clean because people pull out or take other jobs or stay put, get promoted. So it's like just a conveyor belt of having to do this. But that's, like I said, like if a really well executed hire is done really well up front, you find the top 50 to 100 people like we just identified. They are very quickly, through a course of like a couple of days or a week, either engaged or not. The ones that are not are retargeted, and then hopefully you can run a process. But like I did this exact same thing that I just showed you to hire you, right? And that still took me 4 months. Yeah, we only had 2 people that kind of excited us, yourself and one other. And so it took me 4 months. So it doesn't always mean that it gets done immediately, but you not doing it this way means you might never ever get a hire made. If you just stick an ad out there, you waste thousands of dollars, or if not tens or hundreds of thousands on people's time, and you may never get the hire made. And so obviously reluctantly people come to places like OutScout, and then they have to see the value and see, that it doesn't have to be quite so painful.
Got it. Well, thank you. I appreciate having you on and kind of just getting an inside glimpse into what goes into some of the search. Hopefully helpful for listeners to take away some of the practices that went through to, that was a kind of quick and dirty search that resulted in a couple hundred people identified that hopefully is helpful to go after.
Yeah. And I would think, if I tweaked a little bit for like 30 minutes or an hour, I would think I could probably get that down to like 50, 60, 70 people with a mix of California, West Coast and remote, maybe 100. And then I'd expect 20, 25% response rate on that. And then with some good sort of in-depth qualification and getting the right level of buy-in from folks, I would like to think you'd have 10 people, 10 highly engaged people in play over the course of a week or two. See what happens with that. So it's kind of like, well, I'm always thinking, right, okay, if I get 100 people identified, 20 should be interested in a conversation. 10 would be well primed for an initial interview.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Good kind of benchmarks to keep in mind as you're potentially building outreach and doing this on your own.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Breakout. If you want to hear more, make sure to hit subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast to be the first to get notified when future episodes are released. If you like the show or want to share feedback, please leave a review so we can keep improving and share the word with other leaders in the tech talent space. If you have suggestions for topics we should cover, please feel free to reach out to either myself or Gareth.